Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today for our Doctor of Design information session. I want to introduce Barry Wylant, who is our graduate program director and helps and actually manages the Doctor of Design program. Doesn't help, he manages it, and I help him. My name is John Brown. I'm the Dean of the School of Architecture, Planning and Landscape. And I just want to begin by acknowledging that I am meeting with you today from the traditional lands of the people of Treaty 7, which includes the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprising the Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai First Nations, as well as the Tsuut'ina First Nation and the Stoney Nakoda Nations, including the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wesley First Nations. I also make note of the fact that the city of Calgary is home to Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3, and by the signing of Treaty 7 in 1877, the university recognizes that we are all treaty people. I also would like to introduce Jen Taylor and Alexa Desjardins, who are our recruitment and admission specialists. You'll get to know Jen a lot if you start to make your submission to the program, and as well as Alexa, they will be answering your questions over the course of the process. The job today is to introduce you to the program and to talk about the various features of what it is that we are providing and what the advantages are to practitioners who would be interested in attending, and to answer your questions. Today, for the first time, we've done this a number of times, we have one of our candidates in the first year of the program. Cecile is here, and she's going to give a little bit of a short presentation about her experience with the program over the course of the last 2 months, I suppose. And so we're looking forward to that, and we have a video of some of the students in our second year program that just a 3-minute clip that talks about some of the work that they're doing, and gives you an introduction to that. So we will be going into the third year of our program in the fall of 2022. We started 2 years ago. We had 7 students enrolled in our initial cohort. This year we have 10 additional students starting first year, and next year it will be in that 10 to 12 range as well for steady state. To date, we've got 8 architects, 4 planners, 4 landscape architects, and 1 industrial designer. They come from 7 Canadian cities and 3 countries, including Canada. So those are the stats, and maybe we will start with the video and then move from there into a brief PowerPoint presentation, and then Cecile, and then we will open it up for questions. Jess, can you play the video, please?
I'm implementing the program of my research in real time. I really wanted to talk about the emotional connection of love that we often have to our community. This local area plan tool can provide a bridge to that understanding. The places that have done this very successfully show the return and the value that's placed in their community. The cohort being brought together with such a diverse group of practitioners provides such a value in a way that is not something that I had anticipated.
I'm still amazed right now, sitting here, how little innovation has gone into the process of aging. And the more I dig into it, it's at the very least a complex problem. What if we more purposefully and more warmly and widely engage elders into this innovation ecosystem?
The medium that we're designing in is actually alive. To spend hours researching bat ecology, native plant assemblages, dimensions of the pond to optimize food production, and the ability of the bat to swoop in and get its food, make that really strong connection between ecology and design. Re-examining our relationship to nature as designers, to support natural systems, to let nature guide us.
My bold ambition is to create a new environment that fosters innovative typologies in housing design. I want to illustrate that people are more adaptable to change than they believe they are. I've really been interested in the disconnect between mass housing and architecture. Also, is it possible within this environment to define an urban architectural design toolkit that can address bespoke solutions and yet remain affordable and not become formulaic?
My entire life, I've always been connected with the land. The tradition of landscape architecture shows a link between it and public health. In my practice, I'm involved in a wide range of project types, but those in which get me the most excited are related to public health and well-being.
What am I missing? Why is this ground so shaky? Is it even relevant anymore? With a ground that's inherently fragile, broken, how do we heal it? I think that's my question, is creating a vocabulary, a space, a process which allows for that healing and which allows for it to be foregrounded in the practice. And what would that vocabulary look like?
What we'd really like to see come out of our own work is a case study for others to be able to look at their practice. I want to challenge the dogma of architecture. This reminded me that I needed to be more careful in the way that I was making decisions about the business, about the practice, about charting my own course through it. We're trying to design our own design process and design our own future as designers.
Thanks, Jess. And you're all, that's the first time that rough cut of the video has been shown publicly. So you were able to see something nobody else has seen, and it's probably 80% there. We're going to clean up a few small things, but it looks really, really great. So let's dive into the meat of the matter. And if I'll share my screen and go through this very quickly and describe a little bit about what we're doing. So the University of Calgary School of Architecture, Planning and Landscape really is interested in impact. How can we change the world? There has probably never been a time since the Renaissance when architects, landscape architects, and planners have had a more relevant opportunity to have an impact in the world, from climate change to social justice, pandemic resilience, these hot button issues that are changing the way in which we live and will echo through the next generations, really have so much to do with the built environment. And so we are really interested in creating individuals that can impact the world. Now, we do that with our graduate programs, our first professional degrees, which all of you have gone through at some point in your careers. But we wanted to create an opportunity for mid-career professionals to come back to school after they've got their battle scars, after they've gone through practice and understood what the realities of the world are, but also what are the opportunities? Is there, I am sure all of you have had an experience in your career where you've gone, oh gosh, now there's an idea, or there's an opportunity, there's something that needs to be done. Somebody should do that. But in the world of business, in the world of consulting, there just is so little time for that kind of speculative introspection and work that it just never gets done. And so we created the Doctor of Design program as an opportunity to create space for practitioners, mid-career practitioners that are already experts in their particular field, to develop a space to develop that innovation, that critical practice piece that will not only transform their program, their career trajectory, but also contribute new knowledge to our disciplines. And it really is about how you can transform your practice. And the Doctor of Design is, as I mentioned, a doctoral degree for practicing design professionals who want to build recognized expertise in a specific topic area and elevate their professional career to a new level. So it's three things: it's relevant, it's applied, and it's impactful. And there are two ways that we can think about innovation. We can think about innovation of things, as in a new building type, a new product, a new tangible artifact, a new plan for cities, a new kind of low impact development for a landscape. And then there are innovation of ways, policies, business models, ways of doing things. And both of those are equally important. And our 17 students are pretty much split between looking at both kinds of innovations. But really what we want to do with those innovations is disrupt the status quo. And I have to say, I have not met many architects, planners, and landscape architects at any stage of their career, whether it's their first day in Studio One or as they are retiring from practice, that have not been interested in changing the status quo way in which the world works. I don't think there's many of us that just want to keep doing what's already out there. We want to make the world better. However we define that, and in whatever context and scale and stage that change is, it is about disrupting the status quo. But as we all know from practice, too often we're not able to get to that disruption. We don't have the time and the space to think about that. So it's really about entrepreneurial thinking, which is what the University of Calgary is known for. Not entrepreneurial necessarily in getting a startup and making an app and doing all of that, but in thinking differently, in stretching boundaries, in moving in new ways, and then developing that within this academic program, and then applying it both during the program and afterwards into your practice. So everybody knows what a PhD is, or at least has heard what a PhD is. A Doctor of Design is a new kind of animal. And I wanted to talk about what the differences are, because we do have people that come and attend these sessions thinking that they want to do a PhD, and actually they do want to do a PhD because the kind of research methodology and the process is much more attuned to PhDs than DDes. So let me just describe that a little bit. What they have in common is that they both generate new knowledge, but they do it in different kinds of ways. Within a PhD, we have a scientific or a social scientific based inquiry. And in the DDes, we have a design-based inquiry. So scientific or social science-based inquiry would be putting forth a hypothesis, creating an experiment, gathering data, evaluating the data, and coming to a conclusion. A design-based inquiry is about postulating a future idea, iterating it through the help to ever increasing levels of resolution, and then testing it in the real world. It's what you all do in practice. And we wanted to create an academic program that used that design thinking and that design-based inquiry that we all know so well, rather than stepping outside of that into a different kind of science-based inquiry, of collecting data and running experiments and doing surveys and all of that. That's a very valid and important way of knowing, but it is not what this degree is about. The PhD is traditionally academically focused. PhDs are traditionally the way in which one learns how to be an academic. DDes is practice focused. You're not necessarily going to become an academic or a traditional academic by doing a Doctor of Design. What you are going to do is elevate your ability to practice in new ways. So within the PhD, there is a theoretical methodology, and in the DDes, there's a work integrated research methodology. So in a PhD, you take 5 years out of your life, you move to someplace, you live as a student, and you develop something. In a Doctor of Design program, you continue to work in your studio, in your practice, while you're completing the degree. And actually the research methodology is integrated into your practice, because your research project is embedded in the practice. Your practice becomes, whether you're a principal of a firm, a single practitioner working for a municipality or a not-for-profit, your practice is your work within that, and you want to use that as a laboratory. The PhD builds on a deep knowledge from literature reviews and analysis of the field. So in a traditional PhD, you spend 2 years learning the field, and then you get tested on it. In a Doctor of Design, we don't need to do that because we'll only accept established practitioners, people that already have a tacit knowledge and that has been developed from a deep professional experience and unique personal insights. So in a PhD, it is this kind of stop-out thing, which is why most people that do PhDs do it at the beginning of their career as a way after their master's, and then they do a PhD, and then they go out. But you can see that it really is a stop-out. In the Doctor of Design, it's something that is embedded in the process, and you can start to see that elevation, that lift that's coming out of the innovation almost immediately. As you start to engage in the process. This is a diagram that Barry actually found and a methodology that's very important to us and is really defines the way in which one approaches the DDes, and it's this double diamond model from the UK design where you start with the problem, there's a period of expansion going out, and then you converge and focus to get to the design brief. It's then a period of expansion and exploration, and then followed by a convergence and focus to the delivery of the program. So we have 4 stages: a discover, define, develop, and deliver. And that idea is that one is about understanding the problem space, and the second is understanding the solution space. Cecile and her cohort are right now in the problem space definition. That takes the first year, pre-candidacy. And then in the second and third year, the second year is really about expansion going out. And then the third year is about converging in to get to your dissertation and the completion and your gallery exhibition and presentation. So in the Discover program, which is in the fall of the first year, it's about understanding the problem through visualizations, diagrams, precedent reviews of projects, of your past work, reflections. It's done in concert with a 2 courses that Barry and I co-teach, where we lead the cohort through a series of expectations. People walk in with a program with an idea or a problem that they've identified, and we use that first term to try to figure out more deeply what really is the problem, what is the strategy, what are you really going to do within your Doctor of Design. Within the winter term, which is leading up to candidacy, it's really about containing, refining, focusing, where you're defining the proposal, you're defining the program, problem, writing a proposal, starting key informant interviews. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Synthesizing the design brief, getting ready, and then that at the end of the first year, there is a candidacy exam, which is basically a formal design review where you present your project and the methodology that you're going to use to your committee, and then you pass that, and then you're launched into your design. Post candidacy, you're then looking and generating a response to the problem. You're designing the solution. You're designing whatever it is that you're going to be doing, whether it is an innovation of ways or an innovation of things, and it is an opportunity to expand out. And then in the end, you're bringing that back. You're testing it with your key informants. You're developing that document that's a contribution to knowledge that then becomes your final dissertation, and then you're in practice after that, where you're going to be implementing it. So if we look out over the course of the 3-year program and how that fits within that double diamond, it's kind of a stretch a little bit. You'll see the blue and the yellow dots twice a year, once in the fall and once in that spring-summer period. They're roughly 6 months apart. We have a symposium where it's, well, it was 1 day last year, it's 2 days this year, and it'll be 3 years moving on, where every student in the cohort, all about 30 people, congregate, hopefully soon in person predominantly. We haven't been able to do that yet because of COVID. get together and every person presents their work to the cohort, as well as to the supervisors, as well as to a series of invited guests. And I have to say, I went through a similar program to this at RMIT in Australia. And that was the best part of the whole experience were those symposia, where you're getting an incredible amount of reflection back on what you're doing, because you're surrounded by your peers who are all doing different projects, but they're experts in their own areas, and seasoned practitioners are able to provide that feedback, as well as the invited guests who are coming in to provide feedback, and your committee members. So think of it as, go back to the days of design school and having that final review or interim review crit. We base the whole idea of the DDes around that studio pedagogy of crits. The two yellow circles, one in the spring, summer of year 1, and then the spring, summer of year 3, are the gateposts. That first one is candidacy, where you basically are presenting your research project and getting permission to continue. And then the fall is obviously the completion of all of that. So I'm just going to go back one more step and just say very quickly that we've developed we're using a methodology called design science research, where we want to try to create some sort of peer-reviewed methodology to this design-based process. And what that consists of is, when you're sitting in this year, you develop a series of you develop your problem. You then develop a series of key informants, who would be people that are outside of your traditional community of practice, but who are experts in that field and whose opinion you respect. And we go through an ethics approval process with research services, and you're able to speak to them in a formal way, where you then ask them, you present the problem and you ask them to respond to the problem you've identified. So Barry Johns, for example, is interested in the missing middle of established communities and coming up with a different way of developing those, of redeveloping those, so that we don't have gentrification and the explosion of land values and the people that traditionally lived in those communities not being able to live there anymore. So he has a series of key informants that were builders and city officials and bankers and the people that were involved in all of that process. He interviews them and gets basically a series of performance characteristics that says, so the banker would say, well, here's the big issues that you might have looking at this problem, and here are the things that I think that you would want to think about. Same through each of the 5 to 7 key informants that you would have. You take that information and you use that as the design brief to assist you in the development of your project, which you then start from here and go through to this fall, the fall of your 3rd year. At the end of that, you've developed your innovation. You've got an innovation of ways. It could be a business model for your practice. It could be a policy document. It could be a strategy for going into a new kind of building typology if you're an architect, or a new type of practice as a landscape architect, whatever that is, an innovation of ways or an innovation of things. You then take that and you present it back to your key informants. So they haven't had any contact with you over the last 18 months. And you go back and you say, here's my innovation, banker. What do you think? Here's my innovation contractor, developer, whoever it is that you've identified as your key informants. And they give you feedback on that. And they'll say, well, Mr. Brown, we think that you of the 9 things that you did, I think 5 of these work really well. You missed the boat on 2 of them, and 3 of them I disagree with, but it would be interesting to see. That is that peer-reviewed, evidence-based evaluation that you get of your experiment. It's kind of like doing an experiment, but you're getting it in a design-based context. You then take that feedback and you incorporate it and reflect on it in your final document. So your final document is your project, but it's also saying, here are the 6 people that looked at it. This is what they said at the beginning. This is what they said at the end. This is how I think how I react to what they said, and this is what I would do if I was going to continue in this process, or how I would, what I will do with those comments that I got. And that really is the doctor of design in a nutshell. It is something that is parallel with practice, but distinct from practice. And it allows you to continue to work in your world because you're constantly, obviously, well, hopefully, the project that you're engaged with is integral to the world that you're in, whether you're thinking about launching into even if you're thinking about launching into a different realm of practice. And so then you're able to synthesize those together. I'll just end with a very with the basics. It's a $15,000 a year tuition. There's 3 installments, $5,000 in September, January, and May. Unfortunately, we don't have any scholarships available. The GPA is 3.5 or equivalent. A lot of our applicants and our students are very senior professionals and don't necessarily have their university transcripts at hand, or they may not be reflective of where they are. Don't freak out about that. We look at equivalent professional accomplishments as well. There's a research proposal, which is very open about what is the question that you're fascinated with. I would say that almost everybody refines and changes that research proposal, that research question somehow in the first year. Some completely change it entirely. A portfolio that demonstrates what you've done, some of your work, a curriculum vitae, 2 letters of reference, and of course, English proficiency. And the deadline is February the 28th, 2022 for submission of your application. So before I pass it on to Barry, to Cecile, Barry, do you have any comments that you'd like to make?
Oh, first off, good morning and welcome everybody. And I think one of the things that's really kind of compelling around the program is understanding that the way the world is evolving right now is predominantly going towards urban settlement, built environment. The vast majority of people on the planet will be living within those situations. And that context is actually a hotbed of wicked problems. And I think one of the things that's really interesting about the way that the DDes operates is it allows you to hone in on something, on a wicked problem that you have a personal connection to, and that kind of can be crystallized out of your practice. And then this then becomes a bit of a mechanism for dissemination of that research into a broader audience and with a different kind of impact. So the note that John made about impact, I think, is really, really crucial. And that it's important to understand that it's a compelling time that we live within, and that I think that there's also an important opportunity to have a touch point between professional practice and the academy as a way of kind of engaging those wicked problems going forward and finding new avenues and new ways of approaching those sorts of things. So for me, there's a really interesting kind of congruence of opportune elements that are coming together. And I think that there's an excitement around that, both that can kind of emanate from your own professional practice, but then also understanding this kind of world context and world situation that we're operating within. And I think the program itself is innovative in trying to kind of tap into and crystallize those opportunities that can arise from professional practice, and that the very indeed wickedness, if you will, of problem space that exists within the built environment. So thank you all for attending and for your interest in the program. And John, with that, I can hand it back to you.
Great, thank you very much. Well, then I'm going to now turn it over to Cecile Kosik, who is a Calgary-based planner and has come to us because of her interest and her long work in working in the space of Indigenous homelessness. So Cecile, if you could take maybe 5 minutes to just kind of talk a little bit about your experience, and then I want to leave 20 minutes for questions. Thanks very much.
Thanks, John, and thanks for inviting me here. Hi, everyone. My name is Cecile Kosik. As John has stated, I currently live in Calgary. I moved from Winnipeg. I'm in my first year of the program, and I have a master's in city planning from the University of Manitoba. I've spent over a decade in the public and nonprofit sectors, specializing mainly on developing and managing and designing community development projects with a keen interest in homelessness, but specifically in Indigenous homelessness and using a social justice lens. And so my research topic is focused on Indigenous homelessness and how do we apply the principles of truth and reconciliation in how we engage and consult Indigenous people experiencing homelessness to ensure that our solutions and our practices are relevant, they're culturally appropriate, and they're also impactful. So that's the wicked problem that I'm here to explore and hopefully resolve and work with others to come up with a framework or a protocol on how to engage individuals or Indigenous individuals experiencing homelessness. I'm literally fresh out the gate here. This is my second month. It feels like I've been here forever, but this is my second month in the program. And I really thought about what program I wanted to apply to going back to school, because it's a huge decision for us, right? Some of us have been in practice for a long time, and going back to school is something that we really have to take some time to really think about. And is that something that works well with our life right now, especially for me personally, being a mother of 2 young kids? I really had to think about what program would fit into my practice and my personal life. And the DDes program is something that I'm glad that I applied to and got accepted in, because it does fit into my personal life. And there are a lot of components to the program that I really enjoy. The first is that it is a practice-based research approach, as John and Barry have stated. And you don't have to take time off work or your personal life. You don't have to put that on hold to go back to school and focus entirely on your studies in a traditional PhD program. You can work and really practice and go back to school and do your research in your practice, because it's embedded in your practice. As a planner, and especially a planner working with an Indigenous population group, which I don't identify as Indigenous, it's very important for me that my practice be relevant, be culturally appropriate, sensitive, and also impactful. And I feel that this program is giving me the opportunity to really do that and practice it. And for it to be more practical, I'm able to network with people in the field. I'm able to expand my community of practice and meet new people that would help enrich my project. So that's something that I really appreciate in this program. Really. And I'm using my tacit knowledge. I'm thinking about my past experiences, and it has really forced me out of my comfort zone. It has really made me think about my why. And that was the first question, was, why are you passionate about Indigenous homelessness? And I know why, but it actually forced me to think deeper, also not just a professional level, but also a personal level, to figure out what drives me, and using that passion to now fuel my research and why I'm doing what I'm doing. The next component that was something that I didn't really think about is that this is a multidisciplinary program. It is not just for planners. As you take your master's, you just work with planners. It's a program that opens you up to other design professions like architects and landscape architects, something that in my professional sector, I don't have the opportunity to meet. And why is this important? Because as a planner, again, diversity in how I learn is very important to me. Having access to other professions creates a different dimension to my learning. It really gives me an opportunity to work with people outside of my community of practice. It gives me an opportunity to look at my problem from a different perspective, from a different lens, and it challenges me in that sense. And looking at our cohort group, we're about 10 of us right now. And we're not only diverse in our professions, we have landscape architects, we have architects, and we have planners. We're also diverse in our age group, as John has stated. We're diverse in our cultural background, in our research topics. So you get to learn about other areas that maybe I've never heard of. So I'm gaining knowledge through my cohort. And also we're diverse in our locations. And we have people in Dubai, we have people in LA, sunny LA, we have people in Nigeria, where I'm originally from. We also have, my classmates are scattered across Canada. And this is important to me because I get to learn about what's happening in these different parts of the world. And I get to expand my knowledge and my experience through my classmates. So it does create a diversity in my learning, and it also makes it very interesting and intellectually stimulating. That's something that I've thoroughly really enjoyed and was unexpected, but very much appreciated. Lastly, one thing that I've really appreciated most is the support that I've gotten from my classmates and the staff, the professors, as well as the staff at SAPL. When you're in a doctorate program, you're going to have challenges, right? You're going to question, like John has stated, you're going to question your research topic, you're going to question everything, you're going to question your practice, but you have that support from your classmates because we're all in the same boat. We're able to look to each other and lean on each other to help us get us out of the weeds and get us back on track and do this all together. So that's something I'm very, very appreciative of. So going into this program, I have thoroughly enjoyed digging deeper than I would in my practice, because you're trying to, there's also always fires to put out. You're not really evaluating the projects that you've worked on, why it worked, why it didn't work, what you could do differently. You're just moving on and doing things and just keeping up with the pace, trying to keep up with the pace really. But this program really forces you to pause because you're done with the status quo. You want to elevate your practice. You want to enrich your practice. You want to ensure that your work is impactful to your clients. And it's making a difference, not just to the individuals, but to the community and society as a whole. And this program has really gotten me to that point that I was looking for. And now I'm looking forward to, after the exploratory phase, is now the work, doing what would actually work and working with other people outside of my group to figure out solutions. So that's where I'll end.
Thank you, Cecile. That was great. That was it's really nice to hear from you and your experience. Just to maybe I'll just say that in the first term, the class meets with Barry and I once a week for 90 minutes. I think we're going to expand that to 120 minutes just because it's a little hard. And we have a third instructor, Greg Hart, who is an entrepreneur and a city builder. And the class meets and we review each of the students' work over the course of the week, just like a studio crit, and then present a challenge for the next week. And then the students meet once a week outside in their small groups. So we have 3 groups of 3. One has 4 because we've got 10 people. They meet once a week outside of class for another couple of hours, probably to talk about the projects and the series of steps that Barry and I and Greg take everyone through as they start to refine their project. So we have our next symposium is going to be November 26th and 27th, Friday and Saturday. And if you are all invited to observe, if you're interested in seeing what everyone is doing, we start on Friday morning with the senior students, the second-year students, and then the first-year students will go following that. And at noon, we have a keynote lecture with Harriet Harris, who is the Dean of Pratt School of Architecture in New York, who just wrote a book about innovative forms of practice and is going to give an amazing chat. If you're part of the RAIC, she was at Congress doing the piece on climate change, one of the sessions on climate change. So, and then the last piece I'll say before we go to questions is that if you're interested in applying, I really highly recommend that you make an appointment to have a video chat with Barry and I to talk about your idea, to answer specific questions that you might have, and just to test to see, is this an idea that is appropriate for a Doctor of Design? Is your area of practice, stage that you're at, all of those kinds of things. We're happy to have that. And I think we've met with just about everybody that has applied to the program, and certainly everybody that's been accepted. So on that note, I'm going to open it up for questions. Jess, are we moderating them through the chat, or do people just put up their hands? What would you like to do?
If folks have questions, either put your name or in the chat box or raise your hand and we will call on you.
There we go. Thank you. Somebody must have a question. Shamar.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, so I'm just wondering, is this like leading up to becoming like an actual architect, or is it more of like architectural technology diploma type course?
It's neither of those.
Okay.
This is an advanced doctoral degree program for people that are already registered architects, registered planners, or registered landscape architects, or are eligible to be licensed.
Okay, so if I live in Saskatchewan and we have a program at SAPL Tech, which is like SAPE for you guys. So would those credits transfer over to you guys in any type of way, or no?
No, these are for people that are much further along. They've been working for 10, 15, 20 years.
Okay, I got you now.
So we'll see you in another 15 years.
Sounds good.
All right. Pietro, you have a question?
Yes. Good morning. My question is this: I've been in the academic world for almost 18 years here in Toronto.
Yeah.
And although it's not a traditional path, perhaps, that the Doctor of Design considers, I do have projects, or I'll call it a practice that I've developed via my research in my academic life that I'm wondering if there could be a candidate for something like this. It is work that I would integrate into my academic world, and I've already started some significant projects abroad in Italy that I would want to do. I just don't know if this is something that would be considered here, as it is not a traditional practice-based exercise.
Yes. Yeah, very good question, Pietro. And we have not had someone coming from a kind of academically situated practice, but there is nothing to say that that would not be appropriate. I think what I'd suggest is that you have a meeting with Barry and I to talk about that. I mean, the main point of the DDes, there's two pieces of it. One is that it is design based, so it's using a design methodology of interrogation and investigation, and the second, that it is interventionist. So it is about making an impact, and whether you're, and if you have a venturous academic practice that you want to take to another level, then that would be, I see no reason why that wouldn't be appropriate at all.
We're quite broad in how we define practice.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah, I threw that word in there just because it's what's been being used, but it does touch upon some of the factors you just mentioned and you've indicated in the presentation, but perhaps a deeper conversation could answer some other questions. So I'll definitely reach out.
All right. Well, that's great. Thank you, Pietro. I appreciate that. Are there any other questions? We must have just answered. Oh, there we go. Paul. Hey, Paul. Good to see you.
Hey, John. It's actually probably a question for Cecile. Within sort of the work you're doing, assuming that your area of inquiry is related directly to your practice of work, but obviously this is an enhancement to that. How many additional hours over and above the work you're doing are you putting in a week to make this happen? I'm just starting to count on my fingers what that would take.
That's actually a great question, because that's something that I had to think about, right? Is if I went into a traditional PhD program, I mean, my evenings, weekends would be completely consumed. I would say in terms of hours, I would put in maybe a couple hours a day, depending on what project I'm working on. And we're taking 2 courses this semester, so that we joined into one. So we have presentations and projects every week. So that, in addition to my research, I would say, yeah, a couple hours a day. However, I leave my weekends open because of my family. And this program allows me to do that. It's just managing my work and making sure I'm able to get all of that done. So my weekends are free. So I would say it's very manageable doing this program and also practicing. I would say it's more manageable than your traditional PhD program for sure.
So maybe I can also jump in as well. That's a question we get just about everybody, and if you don't ask it, then you're not thinking about it deep enough.
You're not serious.
Yeah, you're not serious. It is an issue. And I asked that question when I started the program in Australia. And I was told that the expectation is about the same amount as a job in the office. If you're a principal, if you're a project lead, so it's maybe, half a day to a day a week, depending on the flow of the schedule. Some days it's like the end when you're writing, there's a lot at the, in other sections, and right in the first term, it's also quite heavy, but then after that, it lightens up. But what I would say, and this is something that we're just working with right now with everybody as they start to formulate their projects in first year, is to articulate a work program that is doable within the time frame that you've got. You are in control of deciding what it is that you're going to do. So we have for example, we have a quite a well-known residential scaled architect in Vancouver that's joined us, and he's interested in how he's going to expand his practice out, and so he's looking at and he's kind of the architect's architect, right? And to makes those incredibly beautiful houses. Looking at going to BC Bids, which is the online public procurement process, and picking 3 projects over the course of the 18 months of his research project to develop a schematic design for each one, to see if he could build something that was interesting within the kind of confines of projects that would typically not be interesting to do. And he figures that that's something, and it's a combination of him doing some of the work, of his office participating and doing some of that design work, which is totally fine. I did the same thing. The actual kind of research piece, when you get to the writing, that needs to be you and your reflection and all of that. But you can really define how intense that project is depending on what you're doing. We have another person in Toronto who's actually using this to launch a whole new model of practice. So for him, this is like a 24-hour-a-day job. And I don't think he distinguishes between the DDes and all of the work he's doing on his firm. It's happening, it's unfolding in real time for him. And so, therefore it's a much bigger thing, but I'd say in most cases, you're not actually able to separate out that time. So even though you might be spending 2 hours a day as Cecile might be, or whatever that is, it is so integrated into your world, or it should be so integrated into your world, that it's not like you're going to learn how to play the cello, where it's so different that you're not doing it. It is actually your practice. I hope that answers part of the question. Barry, did you want to?
Go ahead, Barry.
Oh, I was just going to say too, it also changes as one progresses through the degree. So it's more formalized, particularly in the first term with the course-based contact. That tends to give folks a kind of a rhythm of understanding commitment and time commitment and that sort of thing. And that's where Cecile's comments about, a couple hours a day within a work week gives you a sense of the scale of it. The nature of the contact changes a little bit in the first winter term, but once you you complete the courses, which only occur in the first year, then it's about how do you make room for it within your practice and for the kinds of experimentations and consideration. And so, you know, if a project becomes something that you're doing with a client, there's also the DDes research question that's going on in the back of your mind. And that's where it gets to that point that it can be kind of hard to separate the two that John was alluding to. So I think it's also just important to keep in mind that the nature of what becomes formal contact changes dramatically as one advances through the degree.
Yeah, and on that note, the second year group have elected to meet every 2 weeks as a group. Outside, Barry and I join them once every month to have a kind of check-in, and they're talking about progress. And they just found that cohort-based collaboration, or at least connection, was so important that they continued it. Sorry, Paul, did you have a last comment?
No, we can take this offline and have a further discussion to understand, but thanks, that's good.
Okay, thank you. Scott. Scott, I think you're on mute.
Hi, I guess I have two questions. One, just want to know a little bit about the history of this program, like what other schools offer this program in the past or currently. Yeah. And second question is, of the U of C within the program, is there a publication or someplace we can go to see what other Doctors of Design, what their work is, or publication of the work?
Sure. Yeah. So we're in the second year of the rollout of the program, and so we don't have any publication dissertations published yet. That will happen next April. We'll have our first defenses. But with that said, the best thing to do is to attend the November symposia and to watch that. We also record the presentations, and those are available on the dashboard of the symposia, so that you can go back and see how projects are developing. But I'd say that that's the best way to spend an afternoon or a morning or maybe even 2 days to just sort of sit through and see how everybody is going on. We do have, Nicola just put up that we have 2 profiles of current DDes student work up on our website. So we're slowly working on getting those profiles up. In answer to the broader question, I stole this model from the Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology in Australia because I took the program, and it was so amazing. When I became interim dean, I thought if I'm only going to be interim dean for 1 year, I'm going to do one thing, and that's to get this program launched. So I did that, and now I'm permanent dean, so I've got other things going on. But it was such an amazing opportunity, and there it's called a PhD because nomenclature within the culture of academia. But it is a design-based, and it's actually spread. I took it. They have a program throughout Australia that involves almost all the schools of architecture. They have a program in Europe that I attended, Barcelona, and then they also have a program in Southeast Asia. Virginia Tech University in the States, the dean from RMIT moved to Virginia Tech and started a program there, and we have a collaboration with them where Barry and I speak on those symposia, and Marcelo Stam speaks at ours, and our students go and watch each other's symposia. Ours is different from those other models in that it is much more applied and impact driven. In the other programs, they're reflecting on the nature of architect or of design. What does it mean to design? What does it mean for me to design? What does it mean in the world to design? Design as it's a reflection or a research on design or on practice. We're interested instead on how do we apply our skills as designers and the tacit knowledge that we've accumulated over our career into making an impactful innovation. And it's really driven by where we are in the world. The world's on fire. When RMIT was set up in the 90s, you know, it could be something that was more inwardly focused. I think that we have an obligation right now as disciplinarians in all three professions to be out changing the world. The world needs change, and this is an opportunity to make that happen in whatever scale, in whatever arena of the built environment you're interested in. This is a place to nurture that and develop it in different ways. And I guess maybe just to conclude, our role as academics in the program is not to teach you anything. You know everything that almost everything that you need to know to do this, because it comes out of the crucible of practice. What we do we're mentors, we're guides, we take you through a process that we've developed that helps you to develop, refine the why, as Cecile said, develop the idea, identify the key informants, go through the process of working through that, which is your piece, and then at the end coming back with the key informant review and polishing it off. So we're here as assistants, again, very much like the way studio design courses work, where the student is responsible for the project and the critic provides some useful advice and touch points along the way. I hope that answered your question, Scott.
Yes, thank you.
All right. So I see we're coming to the end of our time, or we actually are at the end of our time. So if you are interested in learning more, please just contact Jen, and she will organize a time for Barry and I to meet with you. And please, I hope to see you at the November symposia. It is going to be all online this year. Hopefully in the spring, we'll be able to do something that's blended, and we'll all be able to get together in person, or at least most of us will be able to get together in person and have those great discussions at breakfast, lunch, dinner, outside of the actual presentations. Yes, there is a Doctor of Design at Harvard. It's a little bit different again from where we are, and not, it's a different kettle of fish, as things usually are at Harvard. All right, so thank you very much to all of you, and have a good rest of the day, and we will see you soon, hopefully. Take care. Bye-bye.